In the ancient kingdom of Israel, during a time of growing strength and promise, a young prince stood on the edge of destiny. His name was Solomon, the son of King David, a man after God's own heart, and Bathsheba. From the moment of his birth, his life was surrounded by both divine purpose and human expectation. Yet no one could have imagined the heights he would reach or the depths to which he would fall. As King David grew old, the question of succession stirred tension within the royal household. Many assumed another son would take the throne, but David, guided by the will of God, declared Solomon as his chosen heir. With solemn ceremony and divine approval, Solomon was anointed king. He was young, inexperienced, and aware of the immense responsibility placed upon him. One night, early in his reign, Solomon traveled to Gibeon to offer sacrifices to God. There, in a dream, God appeared to him and said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." Faced with such a profound opportunity, Solomon did not ask for wealth, power, or long life. Instead, he humbly requested wisdom, an understanding heart to govern the people and to discern between right and wrong. This request pleased God greatly. Because Solomon had asked for wisdom rather than selfish gain, God granted him unparalleled wisdom, along with riches and honor beyond measure. From that moment, Solomon became known as the wisest man who had ever lived. His wisdom was soon tested. 2 women came before him, each claiming to be the mother of the same child. With no witnesses and no clear evidence, the case seemed impossible. Solomon ordered that the child be cut in 2, giving half to each woman. One woman agreed, but the other pleaded for the child's life, offering to give him up. In that moment, Solomon revealed the truth. The true mother was the one who loved the child enough to surrender him. The people were amazed, and Solomon's reputation spread far and wide. Under Solomon's rule, Israel entered a golden age of peace and prosperity. The kingdom expanded, trade flourished, and wealth poured into the land. Nations from distant lands came to hear his wisdom and to witness the glory of his kingdom. Among them was the Queen of Sheba, who traveled with a great caravan bearing spices, gold, and precious stones. She came to test Solomon with hard questions, and he answered them all with ease. Overwhelmed by his wisdom and the splendor of his court, she praised the God of Israel who had placed such a king on the throne. But Solomon's greatest achievement was the building of the temple in Jerusalem, a magnificent house dedicated to God. Constructed with the finest materials and the labor of thousands, it stood as a symbol of God's presence among his people. When the temple was completed, Solomon led a grand dedication ceremony, praying for God's blessing upon the nation. As he finished, the glory of the Lord filled the temple like a cloud, and the people fell in worship. At this point, Solomon's life seemed perfect. He had wisdom, wealth, honor, and a deep relationship with God, but the seeds of his downfall were already being planted. Despite God's command that the king should not take many wives, especially from foreign nations, Solomon began to form alliances through marriage. He married princesses from Egypt, Moab, Ammon, Sidon, and other nations. Over time, he accumulated hundreds of wives and concubines. What began as political strategy slowly became spiritual compromise. These foreign wives brought with them their own gods and practices. At first, Solomon may have tolerated their beliefs. But tolerance turned into participation. Gradually, the man who once built a temple for the one true God began building altars for idols, gods of wood and stone that could neither speak nor save. His heart, once fully devoted to God, became divided. The scriptures describe this tragic shift with heartbreaking clarity. His wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God. Solomon, the wisest man on earth, began making foolish choices. He built high places for Chemosh, Molech, and other detestable gods. In doing so, he led the nation into spiritual decline. The king who once led the people in worship of the true God now set an example of disobedience and idolatry. God, who had appeared to Solomon twice and blessed him abundantly, was angered by this turning away. He sent a message through a prophet, declaring that the kingdom would be torn from Solomon's dynasty. However, for the sake of David, this would not happen during Solomon's lifetime, but in the days of his son. Even before his death, trouble began to rise. Enemies emerged, adversaries who challenged Israel's peace. Among them was Jeroboam, a capable official whom God chose to lead a future rebellion. The once peaceful and united kingdom began to show cracks. Solomon's later years were marked not by the wisdom of his youth, but by the consequences of his choices. The king who had everything lost the most important thing, his wholehearted devotion to God. Yet, in the midst of this decline, there are hints of reflection. Many believe that Solomon wrote the book of Ecclesiastes during his later years, a deeply personal account of a man who had experienced every pleasure, every success, and every form of earthly fulfillment, only to find it all meaningless without God. "Vanity of vanities," he wrote, "all is vanity." In those words, we hear the voice of a man who has seen the heights of glory and the depths of emptiness. A man who realized too late that wisdom without obedience is not enough, and that success without faithfulness leads to ruin. Solomon reigned for 40 years over Israel. When he died, he was buried in the city of David, his father. His son Rehoboam took the throne, but the kingdom would never be the same. As God had warned, it would soon divide, marking the end of Israel's united monarchy. The story of Solomon is one of powerful contrasts. He began as a humble servant, seeking wisdom to lead God's people. He became the richest and wisest king the world had ever known. He built the temple of God and brought glory to Israel. Yet he ended his life with a divided heart, leading the nation into spiritual compromise. His life is both inspiring and sobering. It reminds us that a strong beginning does not guarantee a faithful ending, that blessings can become burdens if not handled with humility, and that even the wisest among us must guard our hearts, for it is possible to know what is right and still choose what is wrong. But above all, Solomon's story points to a deeper truth, that true wisdom is not just knowledge or understanding, it is a life fully surrendered to God. In the rise and fall of Solomon, we see the beauty of God's blessing and the danger of drifting away. A story of greatness, failure, and the enduring lesson that the heart must remain steadfast, no matter how high one rises. And so, the legacy of Solomon lives on, not just in the stones of the temple or the pages of history, but in the timeless warning and wisdom his life provides. A king who had everything, but learned that without God, even everything is not enough.